Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the August 2022 meeting of the 1904 World's Fair Society. I'm Mike Truex. It's great to see a bunch of people that came to a new location, and we have maybe 10 or so people, I think, online on Zoom. It's the 118th anniversary of the opening of the World's Fair, and it's also the 36th anniversary of our society. This is our first show and tell in 3 years, since 2019. And it's always one of our favorites, and we're going to see some things that are new and amazing, and everyone's going to go, ooh, I want one of those. First, are there any non-members or new society members here today? Please raise your hand. Oh, and in the back. Okay, I'd like to give you about 30 seconds to stand up, tell us your name, how you found out about us, and what your interest in the fair is, or whatever you feel like saying for 30 seconds. So, in the salmon shirt.
Rob Koenig, I'm originally from South St. Louis, but I've lived away abroad in Washington, D.C. Just came back after 35 years. I've always been interested in the fair. My grandmother, mentioned later, left me a souvenir from the fair. And I'm thinking about, I published one book, a history book, a few years ago, but I'm thinking of writing another one that would be set at the time of the fair. I'm doing it. So I've already.
That's great, Rob. Thanks.
Rob, what has your, give us your resume, what newspapers have you worked for?
Oh, so I was a Washington correspondent for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for many years. I covered the White House, Congress, and the Pentagon. And then later I went to Europe and I wrote for several publications. I speak German and read German if that's helpful to anybody.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, sorry, young lady in the back, raise your hand.
My name is Claire, and I'm Kristen Holly, who invited me tonight. And I enjoy historical things and objects, and I've lived in Belleville all my life in St. Louis, and very familiar with the area. She invited me because it's the show and tell. Came for that.
Great, great. Welcome. White shirt. I think you had your hand up. Mostly white.
I don't know where to start. To be quite frank. My name is Lou Rupp, RUPP. 20 years ago, I was part of the organization. And, life catches up, you get too busy and all that. So we dropped away, and then my wife and I rejoined, and I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. I am an engineer by education. I'm also a default historian. I was going to be a secondary education teacher in history, and excuse me, the dollars for the engineering took me.
Yeah, sure.
So I not only, when I say history, the United States, not the world. Okay, although the wife worked for Transworld Airlines for 30 years, so we have a chance to travel more than the average bear, and I've seen the world. Right. You name it, we've seen some good stuff. Anyway, so our focus has been American history. Now, to top all that off, I worked for Ralston Training for 26 years. She was with Transworld Airlines for 30. We both retired from those companies. However, we had a secondary business, which was sizable, almost to the point it was causing conflict with the first one. We were antique games.
I understand that.
We were very large. We were in partnership with another company. They were full-time, we were sort of part-time, but sometimes it felt like full-time. We were actually bringing a tractor trailer for off the East Coast once a month of Victorian antique furniture when the craze was going crazy. Those times changed. Uh, I can analyze why they changed, because it was a big revenue, but it also gave us access to a lot of good stuff. I got to a point with my wife, anytime you say, I want that for me, something's got to go out of the house. But that's been our history. The good antiques, good Victorian stuff. What do I mean by Victorian? Everybody got a different definition. 1835, 40, 45. Up into about Civil War. Then it changed a little bit, all still Victorian definition. But you went from the early due diligence stuff furniture to the East Lake period. And then they moved into the gold milk. So I mean, I know furniture company more than that. Need. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Raise your hand on this. Yes, in the black.
I'm Phil Hirschbacher. I'm originally from St. Louis. I went to Western University, so I went for artwork. And so I do mostly sculpture. I studied in Vienna. I have a master's degree in sculpture from the New York Academy of Art. So I'm mostly interested in sculpture and American sculptures as it relates to St. Louis World's Fair. But also like from 1893, which was the start of the National Sculpture Society. And then specifically till 1950, when Carl Bitter kind of ended his run with being the head of sculpture. Yeah, so I'm from St. Louis. I taught college in Nebraska starting in 2006. Now I do sculpture full time. I teach occasionally, but I mostly do full time sculpting. I guess I got mostly interested with my sculpture side of it, but my dad inspired me because I guess in the 1950s, he was climbing around in his attic in South St. Louis City, and like up on one of the shelves, he felt something, and it was a silver medal from St. Louis World's Fair. So he still has that. So he got me into it, I think, pretty young. But I travel all over, like I collect the artwork and memorabilia from the American sculptors of this time period. I was just in Detroit this past weekend. I saw there's a famous Daniel Chester French found here. And then there's also two Adolf Eichmann, who's one that designed the World's Fair medal. Two of his over life-size bronzes in Detroit that I was looking at. So I do vacations based on my World's Fair sculptures.
Bill and I have been texting and communicating a little bit, and I've got him tentatively signed up for a presentation maybe early next year. Something about you have a studio and you play with staff.
Yeah, so I built an enlarging machine pantograph over the years for St. Louis World's Fair. We can enlarge sculptures with the same technique.
So do you have any goal to replicate a World's Fair statue or
That'd be
something?
great. Yeah, if someone wants to finance it. that'd be great.
Okay, well, I want to welcome you all to the World's Fair Society meeting, and we do have some handouts, I believe, on the back table. If you're not a member already, please do consider joining. You get a monthly newsletter. 95% of the time within a week of mailing. We've had apparently some issues with the mailing this time around, which befuddles us. But the newsletter, and there's other events and other freebies that we occasionally stick in the newsletter or mail out to people, and working on our banquet and stuff like that. And I'll get to that later. A few quick administrative announcements, etc. Please be sure and silence your cell phones. I just did that, so we don't have them going off in the middle. Pictures are allowed, but no flash during the presentation. And then on to some of the regular announcements. On Saturday, October 1st, Society members Charles Kaler and Doug Schneider will again present their class and presentation about Relive the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. And because of our technical difficulties we had previously, I had them in here. have some handouts that I will find, probably in my bag or something, about that. You can sign up at the St. Louis Community College continuing education website. There's about I think a $55 charge for the course for adults, but if you're a senior, it's only $45 or something like that. You'll get a presentation with 3D stereo view glasses of the fair, followed by an actual visit to the fairgrounds and touring that. And you'll get to see where the Ferris wheel was in the Grand Basin and much more. And you'll get a little bit of famous fair foods. Say that 3 times. Also on Labor Day weekend, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, September 2nd, 3rd, September 3rd and 4th, the Gateway Postcard Club will host their annual postcard show at the American Legion Hall in Collinsville, Illinois. There will be about 20 dealers there, and there will be hundreds of thousands of postcards. How many people have been to a postcard show before? Were there more postcards than you could ever look at on different topics and subjects and states and cities and stuff? You want to know where you were born, you might find a picture of downtown of the city you were born in, a postcard. And many dealers have lots of World's Fair postcards. Admission is free, and the flyers will be on the sign-in table. Next, an update about the History Museum exhibit. It's been delayed a few months, to no one's surprise. The current World's Fair exhibit, which has been in place since 2004, will close on Sunday, April 30th, 2023, so that a new World's Fair exhibit can be built. Coincidentally, that's the opening day of the fair. The new exhibit will show a lot of different fair views and different artifacts and will be more hands-on. It will also feature a large-scale model of the 1904 World's Fair. It's probably going to be about, I guess, 20-odd feet by about 40 feet. Basically where the carriage is right now. I already asked about the bulletin.
Mike, when was the two-story one, the two-level one, when it opened? It was before 2004,
The
wasn't it?
two-level what?
The World's Fair exhibit, the first one.
86, I believe.
Wasn't that, okay, because I know I was part of that. Okay, I was just wondering, I couldn't remember what year it was.
I take it back, probably 96.
Okay, because they had the silhouettes, on the second level.
Yeah, they made like a portable elevator in the middle to get you up to the
Yes.
thing, and there were cutouts on
Yes.
silhouettes on
Yes.
the top
Yeah, it
level.
was kind of.
That one was only up for 7 years or so, taken down in 03 for the renovation.
I couldn't remember.
Okay, now I'd like to set the stage with a look back at what happened 118 years ago today. Thursday, August 11th, 1904 was a typical warm summer day, some scattered rain showers. We've had enough of those lately. The fair was in full swing after opening about 3 months ago. The crowds were increasing with many special days for states, countries, and distinguished visitors. Yesterday, the automobiles from the tour from mainly the East Coast arrived in downtown St. Louis, driving across the Eads Bridge. 63 out of 122 arrived. They stayed at the Jefferson Hotel overnight, and tomorrow they will come out to the fairgrounds and parade with many other local automobiles. In fact, a total of 285 vehicles went driving around the fairgrounds for a few hours. Today was the original scheduled date for the St. Louis Day, but it was postponed to September 15th so that we get a larger crowd and declare a state and local holiday. And finally, there had been a lot of athletic contests, quote, all Olympic, that had been taking place throughout the fair. Not all of them were really Olympic. But the Anthropology Field Day Olympics, quote, started today and will continue tomorrow. They featured competitions between costumed members of the uncivilized tribes from around the world. The competitions against other, quote, savages included events such as rock throwing, spear throwing, pole climbing, and they were sometimes measured against similar modern sportsmen such as javelin or spear throwing. The American Indians had the best showing in the track events. A pygmy named Bushaba climbed a 40-foot telephone pole in under 5 seconds.
Wow.
I don't think any modern people tried climbing telephone poles.
Right there.
Apparently, there were a lot of photographers there, and it's gotten really a reputation because everyone said, "Oh, how could you do something like that in the Olympics? St. Louis was just terrible." It wasn't meant to be real Olympics, but they called anything athletic the Olympics. But apparently, with all the photographers during the spear throwing competition, a pygmy threatened to impale a photographer, but he didn't actually throw his spear. So be sure, everyone signed up, I think. Our Master of Ceremonies tonight is Director Doug Stone. And it's time to show your stuff, and I'm going to give you a little bit of guidelines. I will be sitting right here in front of this little lamp thing that's controlling what you're looking at here. And as Doug calls you up, he may have a few words to say about what you signed up for. Please come up. I've got the microphone, I think, set up. You don't have to go like this, but if you talk like this, it will be loud enough, hopefully, to be picked up so that the people that are on Zoom can see it and we can get a decent recording. We ask you, we have, how many people did you say, Doug? 15 or so?
11. 11, I think.
I'm sorry?
You want to add 4? He's
11.
11, okay.
He's 11.
Okay. Come up and show your things. Please only take a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes to talk about them. If you go less, that's fine. We don't need any 15-minute dissertations about the history of stuff. And Doug will go over those. And somewhere while you're talking, I'll kind of wave at you and hand the item to me, and I'll put it under the light so everyone can see it up close, especially if it's small.
Okay, this is a tough job. First on the list, Sandy Shear, bringing up an ice cream scoop and a plaque.
Okay, so this was given away, I guess, at one of the closing banquets. Is that the story?
Yeah.
That's one of my questions. And we know that the ice cream cone was popularized, so I thought that that was a really cute thing for us to give away.
Sandy, stand a little closer to your mic.
Okay, where do you want this mic here?
Yeah.
Okay. So my husband was actually the big collector, and he's no longer with us, so I inherited all this stuff. And I have no idea what this is. So I brought it for you all to help me identify it. I'm assuming it's some kind of a plaque that hangs on the wall, but I'm sure it was not that to start with. And if it's very valuable, I'll auction it off sometime.
And this has an aluminum imprinted
Disc.
plaque on it.
Something
Right.
has gone wrong with the focus on this.
And
it was
it's
very-
on a piece of black painted wood. My guess would be that this is a flue cover.
What?
Flue cover. That on a wood burning stove, you'd have a hole that went through where the smoke would go out. And flue covers were a popular artifact, and some of them had World's Fair pictures on them. Jerry, your thoughts?
That's what I was thinking too, because I have a few flip covers, but not one like that. That might be small.
Jerry.
Did you do that?
That might have to be Jerry.
Jerry?
Talk to Jerry.
Anybody have any-
Well, she has to be there because we're picking her up on the camera so that people can see her and
Okay,
what's on the big screen up there. Unfortunately, I don't think I can
yeah.
change the angle of the screen.
Anybody have any idea of value? Yes,
You seem to be confused as to a flue cover, what it is.
right. A flue goes up from like a fireplace.
Correct.
Or a stove.
Or a wood burning stove.
Or a wood burning stove. Okay,
And during the summer months, they took that back down. The whole wall. So they hung up some type of decoration over that hole throughout the
Okay.
summer months, and that's what that is.
Hence the decoration. That's what was confusing me about the flue cover. Okay, got that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
There's something that's gone wrong with your
Okay.
camera. I switched over to mine.
Next up, Aaron Steeple, bringing up a tumbler, 2 tumblers, and a glass stein.
So, I bought some of these things prior. And then I found out, this you have to wait on this for a minute. We'll get this one out.
Put it down
Okay.
here, I'll take care
Yeah.
of it.
Okay. I will. Don't want to roll up.
No, I'm teasing. I might make
There you
off
go.
with it.
So you can see the color of the little tumbler. I have 5 of these. I don't want to sell any of them. But if you have another one, then I'd have 6. Anyway, but you can see the color on the top is kind of that coral red, and then it has a beautiful painted, cascades and very nice. And I think Bill Peeber, I think it was his. I bought him at auction at Selkirk. So then I thought, oh, this is really cool. So I went to the antique show in Belleville. And I thought, oh, I love Napoleon. I've always been kind of, a French, well, I was a French teacher, not kind of a French teacher. And so here's Napoleon, and it's the same glass, you understand? Exactly. So we know it's World's Fair, but do you see something wrong with that? Totally wrong. Even my grandson said, I know what's wrong. What?
Mine.
That's not the French flag. Now, I thought, so I bought it from this guy for $90, and I thought, oh, that's a good price. I wanted it. I still want it. Nobody can buy it. Why? Why is that not the French flag? I don't know. Did somebody goof, the manufacturer, the painter? I mean, what happened? Because it's definitely World's Fair. There's no doubt about that. You all agree. And it doesn't make sense. It's a flag of the Netherlands. And Napoleon was a Francophile. So here is, the pewter top. I bought this at one of my estate sales. And darn it, I didn't realize it was World's Fair. I just loved it. And so that's the French flag. Bleu, blanc, rouge. In other words, it hangs this way. So you see the bars, blue, white, red, bleu, blanc, rouge. That's the French flag. If somebody can figure that out and tell me why that other one is gestunken, let me know. Because,
They messed up.
what?
They messed up.
Oh, I can't hear you.
I said, move it over again.
Mike, I think she's talking.
Okay, I was looking at this. There is a little bit of blue on the left flag, but it's like red, white, and blue.
No, but it's the wrong way.
But it's the wrong way. It's
Those are
horizontal,
horizontal bars.
not vertical.
Okay, I'm not gonna take any more time.
Quality control.
What are the initials?
Now, what do I do? If you
Well,
Do you know what the
remove it
initials
for you?
stand?
Maybe put them on one of the
Okay.
tables.
Karen,
What are the TR initials?
do
Teddy
you know what the
Roosevelt?
initials stand?
Right,
I'm
right, right.
sorry?
The TR, was that Teddy Roosevelt? The initials.
No,
on it.
it's
Initials on the style.
RF, Republic of France.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, oh.
And I'm sure Perrin can say it in French better than I can.
Thanks for not trying.
Mike Truax. Boat and shield.
Well, my book is in bag somewhere, so I may have to come up with some other things, but since I know how to work this, and I'll just talk loud enough, hopefully, for the microphones to work. I have this little thing that says Monaire de Paris.
Oh, yeah.
And it has a little something in it, which I had had before, but finally got one with a box. And it's got some Indians representing, I guess I'll look this way to see it. Under a tree, and people allegorically representing France and the United States of the Louisiana Purchase. And on the back, I'll read it and then I'll show it to you because it doesn't show up real good. It says, St. Louis, 1904, America welcomes the world. And this is a souvenir coin from the World's Fair. And obviously, since this is just cardboard, finding one in a box is a little more rare than finding one that's not in the box. And Perrin, can you, I'll see if I can hold it still enough for you to read
Me,
in French.
Monnaie de Paris.
Okay, that's better than I can say, I'm sure.
Money of Paris.
Okay. So what did teenage girls learn back in 1904 that they don't learn today? Darn, I got a tear in my blouse or something like that. They learned how to sew. And sewing was really popular, you know, and sewing machines got easier and better, but you know, there's World's Fair thimble, there's World's Fair scissors. I'm sure, what else does Jerry have that's sewing related? Little sewing kits. And there was always a thing with thimbles, and thimbles are really hard to find because they get used and worn. A thimble holder or the thimble itself is tough to find, and they're expensive. I've rarely seen one under $200, and up $500 or $600 is not unusual.
I saw one sold for $1,200 not that long ago.
Really. But the question is, they were really good. They protect your fingers to push needles through, you know, thick stuff. And you had to have a place to put your thimble to keep it. And I've seen a little festival hall that the top flips and there's a place to put a thimble. And I didn't know for a long time that things like this were thimble holders. But they have a little piece of wire that goes out from the masts. And this is a little small ship. And I'm going to talk with my back to you for a couple minutes so you can see it. It's a little small ship and it says, greetings from the St. Louis Exhibition 1904. They used World's Fair, Exhibition, and Exposition kind of interchangeably. It's got a picture of a 2 or 3 masted ship, and this thing is in fact a 2-masted little ship with a shell on the bottom. And on the back side, or in between the masts, it has a little round wire to hold your thimble. So I'll leave that here and I'll take it over to a table in a minute.
When did you get that mic? Did you outbid me on that mic?
We all saw it and passed by it over at Belleville one time, and I didn't go very far the second time
So how would you know that it was a thimble?
because we saw, because it's about the right size, you know, commonly known as thimble holders. There were 3 of us involved somehow. I'm not sure I remember how it worked. I'm going to just show you a picture of this first. This is a round piece of staff. Some of the paint, the copper colored paint has come off, but up close, you can see that there's, well, it may not show printed, there's Roman figurines on it. And I'll pick it up and walk up and down the aisle. And this was at some antique show. I honestly don't remember. It was at least 8 or 10 years ago. And I came across it and the guy wasn't asking an outrageous price for it. And he said, it's from the World's Fair. And I said, well, how do you know? And here's some more French. It says, the second line says Louisiana Purchase Exposition. And the top line, I think, says something about participation, and I can't read any more letters after that. But there's a J at the beginning of participation. Here, I'll let you take a look at this, Mr. You know, since you're good at French, while I walk this up and down.
Oh, that's good.
Where is that?
This is David Staff.
It's participation of. It's participation. What's on it, Jay? It says participation. Yeah, not on a J apostrophe. No, it says participation of something, but you can't read the other word. It's not French.
I have no idea where it was exhibited or what it represents. All I can guess is it's in a building somewhere. It's not heavy enough to be
You
like
can't,
metal. It is
you
staff.
can't make that out.
And, well, there are different Roman figures. There's horses, chariots. And take a look and lightly touch it because I want to feel any more.
Supposed to be
And I'm going to be donating this to the history museum
Is he?
because I don't have any place to hang it. Or put it up or display it.
I was gonna say, Jerry's got something to say about that.
And there's-
Mike, you can make it an attendance prize.
Yeah.
Man,
Feel free to. It's 7-8 pounds.
So it's heavier than our normal staff.
Well, it's also pretty thick. Feeling it on my fingers, it's probably 3/4 of an inch thick.
Have you seen any pictures where it might be?
And that's why it hasn't fallen apart in 100 and some odd years.
Yeah, any idea where it could have been mounted?
No,
Like on the ceiling?
I have no idea. It could have been in one of the country buildings on the wall. You come and look, there's not men on horses charging around.
Or Mike, you want to?
Okay, for the zoomies. See how this works. Okay, for you people out watching in Zoom.
It's the size of a large pizza.
Extra large.
Extra large.
What would they use it for, do you think, or was it just a better baseball cap?
It's like a shield.
Nobody knows the use.
I'm sorry?
Nobody knows what it really was used for.
I've asked a number of people, even a couple of people at the history museum.
And that other one.
Jerry, you got any thoughts?
Mine.
Right, mine, yeah, the place where it is house.
I just think of the same word.
All right, next up, Jerry Miller. Yeah, that was good, Mike.
We might have a little issue putting it on the thing over there.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I could.
Well, if you stand up in
Yes,
front,
over
I'll,
here, and then that camera. That camera can pick it up for the people online.
no, hold it up a little higher at an angle so I don't catch the,
There you go. Okay, so I brought 3 items today, and they're all items I've got from the Max Storm collection.
Oh.
So a pair of suspenders from the World's Fair, my friend up my here.
okay.
Have that. And it says World's Fair and stitching on it.
Unfortunately, white on white
Exactly.
isn't going to show up very well.
It's up higher.
There you go. You can kind of see it.
There's a little bit of the embroidery work.
Everybody knows here that.
There we
I
go.
have
St.
2
Louis.
items in my collection.
I see St. Louis.
Worlds. And then the
Worlds,
Fair.
1904. And then it says down here, oh, there we go.
There we go.
That's showing up, David, on yours?
No, the focus is off.
Okay, yeah, taking a picture of a projection screen loses about 10% of the focus, I think.
No, there's more going wrong.
Okay.
Alright, so the other item I brought, or another item from Max Storm Collection is a spoon, yes.
Do you know if that was from like the Tyrolean Alps, maybe?
I have no idea. You have to ask Max Storm. I bought it off a wall. Another item I got is a spoon. Everybody here knows I love my spoons. And this one has enamel on it with David R. Francis in the middle. While you're looking at that, I'm gonna get the third item.
It's almost in 3D, right?
Yeah.
Just shaking back and forth.
The amount of detail work they put into to a lot of these spoons of showing, different things like the second thing down is a riverboat. I'm not sure what the first one is the Grand Basin, looking up towards Festival Hall.
They decorate the back of them too.
Louisiana Purchase Monument with, I'm thinking Jefferson and Napoleon there. And then down the middle, it says St. Louis.
And then my last item is a piece of plaster. It is a plaque from the inside in. And has some little Indians in there.
Yeah, move to your left a little bit more because that's being picked up hopefully on one of the cameras.
Your left or my left? My right.
In the light. There you go. Does that work, David?
That's beautiful. And it says the inside Indians on it.
And what's it made out of?
I think it's just plaster. I don't think it's actually stamp. I think it's just plaster.
Okay.
That's, it seems really soft.
Okay.
The inside Indians. Yeah.
That's so
That's cute.
cool.
And if anybody knows the artist, as it was pointed out to me by Nancy, has his name right there, his or her name, Donner.
Doner.
Would you know someone?
From where?
Oh, okay. Oh,
This might be very similar material to that shield, because I'm seeing, maybe a little moisture got through with a few little chips here and there. That's 1803 and then over here, 1904.
So thank you, Max, for warning these items for me.
That's the best stuff.
The inside Indians. Take it over to the table.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Hand that back to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Rob Koenig, the souvenir place.
This, sadly, this is broken, but my grandmother was 2 years old when she went to the fair with her parents. And she left this to me before she died. But it's just commemorative plates. On the back, it says, St. Louis World's Fair. And I think it's the Palace of Liberal Arts. Is that now the Arts Museum? No, that's a different building. Yeah. So in any case, it's broken. I'm probably going to try to get it restored somewhere.
There are a couple places in St. Louis that you can go. One of them used to be way out in Baldwin on Manchester.
Yeah. But they're fairly common, I think, right? They plates like that.
I know a person who could repair it beautifully.
Do you? Well,
Yeah.
we'll talk after.
Yeah.
You ever watch the fair shop on cable TV?
Oh, no.
They're really, you have to take it over.
Those plates come in multiple colors.
Oh.
There's also red, there's green, and there's a gray.
Yeah. I'm sure it's fairly common.
And there's multiple views, but they're not all that common.
Quite beautiful.
So on the back is, yeah. So I mean, I mainly keep it because.
And a restorer will be able to, take it apart, get the glue off and,
Yeah, maybe restore some of the cracks. Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fair shot still there in both.
I don't know.
She used to be.
They were on the south side of the road, way out at the top of one of the last hills. And I got a China figurine repaired once. And I also went back there and got a World's Fair vase. But I won't tell which one.
The big one blue one,
No,
because that was her video.
yeah, they did a lot of that.
All right, next up, Reva Davis. With a matchstick holder and a folding couch.
This is mostly a secret find for me. My son used to buy some things, and then my other relative the other day said, oh, I used to stop Gary from buying because he bought things that were fake. So I kind of came tonight to see, is this a fake item? Is it really an item or what? All I know that his son once decided because his daddy loves lighting matches. And he said, oh, Grandma, can I do that? It really doesn't say anything until underneath it says the World's Fair here souvenir, St. Louis, 1904. It's carved in there. And I won't let him light the matches. So it's his when I go. So that's one thing. And so that's my one son that lived here that enjoyed coming all the time. Then I know that this, and I'm having a hard time getting it open. And this is from the Palace of Mining and near
Metallurgy.
Metallurgy. And it says St. Louis 1904. I believe it's one of those expanding cups, but I'm having a hard, so you could hear the rattle, but I can't get it open, and I'm hoping somebody could help with that tonight, so.
I figured if anybody can do it.
Okay, just FYI for people who can't see this real good, this is wood. It has a nail driven into the bottom of it. And up at the top, it says, I'm trying to get it close enough and hold still, World's Fair Souvenir, St. Louis, 1904. And this is just basically a hunk of wood with I think a metal, hole drilled in it and a metal cup inserted.
What's
to
the
hold
stamp on the
matches.
bottom say? It said Matchbox or something?
No, I don't think it's.
There's a circular stamp.
On the circular stamp?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is
Oh, it does say something match.
There's match, I see that word. There's a word in front of match.
I can't read that one.
California.
Ray something. I can look at it first.
California wood.
Yeah, California wood.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's
I don't know what that is.
souvenir from.
Stores all matches on the mark.
Okay.
There's no death. Nobody would fake that.
Which will have a trouble.
My grandson will feel really good that is it.
It's real.
But, I mean,
It says not for under 8 years old.
but, I didn't think about items being fake, that they make them look like they're really from the World's Fair. And that's, didn't think about that when I have.
Oh,
a few items that I have.
The match on the bark. Strike the match on the bark.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, rustic match,
Box. California wood.
strike match on
The
bark.
bark.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to practice because I tried before to get it
Well,
open.
the trick is give it just a little bit of a twist as you're doing it, I think, rather than just pull. And
I
it's
must have,
Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts used to have
oh, I
plastic
still
ones
have
of these.
those two in my cup. They came in handy. I think they still sell some today.
So your cup got open.
I'm the girl.
Jerry took care of your cup. It's in good shape.
Now I have.
Well, Mike did it too, so I think maybe it's broken free.
Okay.
That's a pretty one.
And that's Palace of Mines and Metallurgy.
I say.
And it kind of snaps on the bottom.
Can you open it for me again?
Well, I think if you just kind of pull it apart from the curves or just like tough, it's kind of like Tupperware,
Oh, okay.
you know, just
Oh,
pull the.
I was turning, not pulling.
Sometimes a little turn might help, but. Neat.
Thank you.
You put those on one of the tables.
Oh,
We interrupt this meeting for a paid commercial announcement. We have 1904 World's Fair printed on a new bag. How many people have seen these before? If you went to the picnic, you may have gotten one. And I need to zoom out. I guess that's as far as it'll zoom out. But it's a kind of a knapsack type thing. And here's a pen. It's been probably 15 or 20 years since we sold pens, and they're good pens. They write real good, World's Fair Society, since 1986. And we also have printed a set of 6 different note cards with stereo views on them, courtesy of Kathy Orff, who did the design work for us. Greetings from St. Louis. This is a beautiful fountain. It's at the top of one of the side cascades, and you can see the water. This is the base of the statue up here. The statue is probably a good 12 feet tall or something like that. It was gilded. You can see the water is falling several feet with some water nymphs and stuff like that in a waterfall. And I'm trying to avoid the glare. But just to give you a sense of size, look at the little girls.
Oh, my God.
I think that's a big, kind of like a monster fish or something like that. It's kind of what I'd like to catch and, feed the whole troop. Thank you for this commercial interruption. At the FARE, we will have these things for sale. So come by and see us or volunteer.
All right, next up, Nancy Bortry. Bringing a picture and a hold the light card and a shell weight.
Okay, so I have a story, and Mike's not gonna like my story, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. I got started in this with my dad. My dad was a Washington U graduate, school engineering. My mom was school of liberal arts. He got me into this. He collected, I started collecting too. I have 2 books at home. I'm not sure which grandmother they came from. I'm still researching that. I have family that came from England. I have family that came from Germany. And family from Hungary. So if anybody knows how to translate Hungarian, that would be great. So Mike likes to do auctions. I saw this on an auction and I said, oh, that's pretty. It's Royal Dalton, it's British.
After I saw.
And it wasn't after. We still have this argument, and I said, oh, if you get it, I will buy it from you. he got it and then he decided he liked it. So this is where my story gets really neat though. We had a little argument about it and all that, and I told my girlfriends what a creep he was. And I'm gonna tell you, what's really, really neat about this story is I found another one, but I found it in England. I found it at an antique dealer. Really nice guy, British guy. I had a nice conversation through email with him. And of course, I went further with the conversation, and as most antique dealers, I'm sorry, our antique dealers, they don't know where anything comes from. So he did say he would try to research for me. Anyway, it is a, and I'm trying to research further, and maybe the sculpture person can help me. It's a Royal Dalton Dutch A Harlan series picture. I'm gonna give it to Mike. Make sure you get all of it. And don't take it. Mike's got one too, so he should need this one. Anyway, I did look up, it's designed by Charles Noki. It was brought, in my case, this was apparently, I think, either purchased at the 1904 World's Fair and taken back to England, and I brought it back home. So that's why I'm excited about this one. So na to you. Anyway, so this Charles Noki, who also designed other sculpture type items for the World's Fair, fiery red sculptures, and also pictures with pictures of British people and all that that people drink out of nowadays. He was apparently designed some of that stuff for the 1904 World's Fair too. But I'd like to find out more information about this guy, because there's a whole series out there, which is really neat. And I'm now looking for more stuff.
This is one of the few pieces I've seen that has the banner going around the Royal Dalton sign that says World's Fair St. Louis, USA, 1904 copyright. There are other pieces kind of in the same series,
Oh, there's a lot of, but I'm looking specifically for 1904, but there are a lot of neat pieces. It also says, in one area that I found, Dalton's flambe ware is very striking with its fiery red color. That's not this, but they're talking about the other stuff that was there. There were a variety of different pieces produced with this finish. Dalton's first flambe finished products were exhibited at the St. Louis exhibition in 1904. So there were other items as well. So that's to me, I was always told that neat things come in small packages, and that's one for me. I'm also a shell lover. And what amazes me, and I have to say, Mike got me one of these paperweights. I have to say, I have been intrigued with shells for God knows how long, I don't know how old am I, 60? Anyway, I've been intrigued with shells for years. But what intrigues me the most, I had this conversation with Jerry tonight, is how many shell things were at the fair. And we don't have any beaches nearby. Jerry suggested maybe because they were cheap. And it was an easy thing, but Mike presented tonight the boat, that's made out of shells. It just was intriguing. So now I collect a lot of things that have, and Jerry, when I come over to your house for that tour, you better watch out. Because he just told me he has three shells. Anyway, I'm gonna keep moving.
It amazes me how many shells in a variety that they get in here, and they get them pretty full. And then somehow they must set it in, some plaster or something. You can see a little bit of the white plaster that holds them in so that they don't shake around or rattle too much. Because some of them will shake and begin to break the shells because they're loose.
And what's interesting to me is they had napkin holders, shell napkin holders, they had stuff like that. They had the paperweights. Those are particularly intriguing to me. But again, there's no beaches here. Who brought them? Who was selling them? You know, I kind of wonder the origin. Since the majority of my family, with the exception of me, were Washington U graduates, I went to Fonbonne and studied at Washington U. I didn't want to be an engineer or a liberal art person, although somehow I live in music. Anyway, another thing that intrigues me is Hold the Light cards. I don't know how you're gonna do this.
Oh,
But I
got an
just
idea.
obtained one of Washington University, which I think is really cool because it's really significant to me and my family. So a lot of the stuff I collect is significant to me or something that I think is intriguing.
I love it. I love it.
So are we getting anything?
Well, the audience here
Oh, okay.
sees it.
Okay,
Good.
good.
We were standing on our heads. We were so excited.
I also obtained one that has the cascades, which is, what do they call them, the bigger or jumbo cards. But if you've never seen one of these, and probably a lot of you regular collectors, this is like not a big deal to you. I just think it's so neat.
One big deal to me is we don't have them. Is that people
Well,
don't sell these anymore.
I think it's neat how they were able to do these things back then. So anyway, I'm done.
Sarah, there's this- Going.
All right. Next is Jim Weimer's postcards and family connection.
Most of you, well, I should say most of, some of you know that I'm into music, and I've been writing some articles and appearing in the bulletin. So I didn't bring music. I brought a postcard. That's the only postcard I have, but it's special to me because it was sent to my grandfather and by his aunt. And I want to tell just a little bit of story about her. Hope you can kind of relate to some of your relatives or something. The bottom card was given to his, given to grandpa by a teacher, so it's a thank you. It's the top card. It's Palace of Education. And his aunt sent that to my, I guess grandpa was probably about 9 years old at the time. But anyway, I knew my great grandma went to the fair, and so I've always been interested, and that's all I knew, was she went. And I live in northern Madison County, they live in Cook County, so it's like a 50-mile drive down here tonight for this, so they were about 60, 70 miles away. So I think she took the train from Bunker Hill. Anyways, she had a sister and two sisters and a brother, I think, who lived in St. Louis. One of them was named Clara, which I didn't even know till a few years ago, because they always called her Tanta. Mr. Koenig, if you know German, maybe knows what Tanta means. Does anybody know what Tanta? Because I was, it means aunt. It means aunt. As a little kid, I thought, oh, she must be related to the Lone Ranger. Anyway, T-A-N-T-E. She was never married. She was one of 12 children. My great grandma was one of them. Their father was a music teacher in Germany when he came over. And it's neat when you do genealogy. I can track my music because I play piano and organ. My mother played piano and organ. Her sister was a piano teacher. Grandpa never had that luxury as a farmer, but he could look open like a hymnal and sing the bass line. And his mother, my great grandma, was one of four women quartet. It's her sisters that sing in a quartet. So it's kind of neat to track your genealogy and track this kind of stuff down. Anyway, Tanta was never married. She was the last one of the bunch to pass away. She was to be 90. She's never married. I like that story because she died when I was like 10 years old. But somebody asked her about why she never got married. She says, why do I need a man? And then my aunt said she went as a kid, went with them to St. Louis and found the Mitchell takes off across the street. They said, watch out for the traffic. She said, hey, don't stop for me. So I'm glad she's not living today. She's walking the streets of St. Louis. But anyway, So anyways, she went to she definitely was at the fair a number of times. This postcard was actually dated 1907, so she probably just had a bunch of them, just, send them out, But it's special to me and it got me interested in the fair. It has to do kind of how I got to be interested in this organization to find out more about the fair. And then it's almost 50 years now since I started collecting music. So that's when I started collecting music from the fair. But anyway, I don't know if this, look at this or not. It's, we have a couple of pictures of her, but when she died, and then this is kind of just personal, but I think some of you might relate to this. She had a mausoleum in St. Louis where she wanted to be buried, but she wound up in Bunker Hill in a nursing home being taken care of by her goddaughter who sold the mausoleum. And so she had what was going to happen. My mom said it was the poorest funeral she ever went to. She was buried in a wood casket lined in velvet and no place to be buried. So my grandpa donated a plot next to where he and grandma were going to be buried and no tombstone. So that was in 1960. And because I got more interested in the fair, interested in her, knowing that even single people, even if they're crabby, they should have a tombstone. So, the other year when we got our stimulus checks, the first one I got, I gave to area food banks. The second one, I said, I'm giving Tom a tombstone. She deserves a tombstone. But when they went to the cemetery, they couldn't find her. They didn't know where she was buried. And I said, well, I think she's supposed to be next to grandma and grandpa. They said, again, watch out with cemeteries because she said, well, the records, the cemetery goes back to about 1830s or something. People were writing things here, writing it down. They were on 3x5 cards and pencil. They couldn't find it. They didn't think, and I said, I'm sure she's buried here because that's the family stories. So they went out with a poll where I thought it would be, no. And then they went in between where grandma and grandpa and great grandma and grandpa were buried. They hit something. So I figured, well, that must be where she's buried, unless great grandma and grandpa buried their favorite dog there or something like that. So anyway, they found it. So I went and ordered the tombstone. It's because of COVID and supplies. It took over a year to get the tombstone. But it's there. It's not a big one. Tombstones are not cheap. But at least I wanted to do that for her because kind of indirectly, she helped me get interested in this organization. So that's my story.
Question for you. Have you ever read the message or the date on it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. How do you like this from your Aunt Claire?
And the date?
07. Yeah.
I believe people would buy postcards and have a shoebox full of postcards for a year or two, and then just reach in and pull, and I'm gonna send this to so-and-so or this to so-and-so.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon to find a World's Fair postcard postmarked in 1909 or 10. And even companies would buy some of them up, and then they would stamp on them. When was the St. Louis sesquicentennial or whatever it was in 1909 or something? 09, okay. I've seen some World's Fair postcards that say St. Louis sesquicentennial, 150 years from 1909. Or whatever it was.
1914.
Was it 24 or 1914 maybe?
Would have been 150, the St. Louis was settled in 1764.
Okay. Maybe it was, 1914. World's Fair postcards, with that kind of postmark. And so they were, they were instant messaging overnight when you put it in the mail, but you might keep it for a year or two before you send it.
Super.
Interesting.
And some other music items.
And the sheet music is for sale. It was sent to me by a friend that knew I was interested in 1904 World's Fair. I will. I just had to get this out. Okay. Normally my voice is loud enough that you can hear it. Okay, I'll hand, this is very fragile. It's a 1904 World's Fair March. But it's complete. It's all there. It's just that it's very delicate. And then, Jerry, I thought you might be interested, or somebody. And then another thing that I had, well, I was always in marching bands. And so, and I don't remember where I got this, but it's a leather band that you'd wear on your wrist. And then it's a little thing that holds your music for when you're marching. And it's patented September 8th of 1903. So it could have been used maybe on the fairgrounds by somebody. I don't know. But I figured that these two things were kind of a companion, you know, with the thing to hold music and all that. And then I think I've talked about this before, but I'll hear Mike, sorry. And then my grandmother, which I didn't even realize my grandmother went to the World's Fair until after she had passed away. But I got involved in the World's Fair back in 1979 in St. Louis as a World's Fair lady in St. Louis. I appeared many times with some of the mayors and all at that time. And then, of course, then I found out about Max and actually came to that in 1986. 1986, yeah, right. But anyhow, my mother gave me my grandmother's diary. And my grandmother, this was in the first exhibit at the History Museum. And it had her picture and it had a hat that was World's Fair. Wasn't a hat from her, but it was a World's Fair hat. And every month they would turn the page so that you could read what was in the diary. And she wrote it in pencil. And it's still very legible. And this is a booklet that actually was from Anheuser-Busch, was given out probably when she toured. And so she wrote in this, and she arrived by train in May of 1904. And she traveled with people that were very well-to-do in La Crosse, Wisconsin. My grandmother was 20 years old, and she was hearing impaired because she had scarlet fever when she was a child. So that took away her hearing. And but she wrote everything in here, which is just awesome. And they came, like I said, May 23rd. It was a Wednesday. And I think that they were only here for a week. And then they left to go back to Wisconsin. But she had passed away before I even knew anything about this. And what's so strange is the fact that here I got involved in the World's Fair and didn't even know that my grandmother had gone to the fair. I mean, wouldn't it have been wonderful if I just got goosebumps right now. If I could have actually talked with her, you know, before she died. I think that one of her daughters, not my mother, but her other daughter, had some of the spoons and things like that my cousin probably has. I don't know. But Mike, here is this. You can open up, you know, if you want to show anything. Then I had something else in my china cabinet, and these are original from the Post Dispatch in 1904. There's this one, well, I'll let you show this too. There's two different ones that I've had for a long time in my china cabinet. And they are not reproductions, they are the real thing from the Post Dispatch. And I would consider selling those as well, because I really don't need to teach those, but it's just some things that, you know, you have, and I was always interested mostly in fashion, but I've even sold off some of my fashion as well. And if anybody needs a black skirt and a white blouse, I have a lot of them, all different sizes. I also have tuxes, so, and I have top hats. I have all this, but anyhow. So I just thought I would share these, and then I also had some medallions, you know, that I had. And on my hat, I have isn't it Scott Joplin? This little, is that Scott Joplin?
Yes.
Okay, I had to put something on my hat, you know, to pull it all together. So, but it's just been exciting to be a World's Fair lady, and things, you know, been in parades and all kinds of stuff that is just so much fun. And then another thing, when my grandmother married my grandfather, he traveled the world on steamships. And so guess what? Back in 1996, I decided that on the steamboats that would come into St. Louis and go all the way up to Minneapolis and down to New Orleans and all that, that might be kind of fun with my things that I do with vintage clothing. So when I was in New Orleans on vacation with my husband, I contacted the company and I said, I'm in town, I would like to come and talk to you. And I went down and talked to them and I booked 4 cruises immediately. They hadn't even seen what I did. So I've done 34 cruises and I've been on with all kinds of cool stuff. So anyhow, this is my part of World's Fair and I still am part of it. I still can dress the part and all that sort of stuff. And so I have lots of stuff. So, but I just thought these were, I forgot I had these. You know how it is, you put things away and you go, oh, that's pretty nice. So put that, you're welcome.
All right, Justin? Okay.
A guidebook, yes. So what I have here is a copy of Laird and Lee's Standard Pocket Guide, I probably don't need my phone anyway, and Time Saver Exposition Seen at a Glance, City of St. Louis. And if you open it up, it talks about different, there's mines and metallurgy. I don't know how we want to do this. The different
Just talk
buildings.
about it now.
Looks like there's a map of the fair. But one of the neatest, some of the neatest things are it actually has like a little planner or it shows what you saw. And here, so like this is August 1904, Thursday, August 25th, left home. And it says, you know, what they saw each day here on Monday, the 29th of August. Went to agriculture, horticultural, fish, forestry, the Ferris wheel. I see the pike in here. And then on Sunday, since the fair was closed, it just says attended church at. You could put what church you went to. But it talks about rapid transit facilities. There's Union Station. I don't want to be flipping. There's too much. But it has here a cash account. You can actually put how much you spent here. So it actually has here. Looks like this person spent a total of $18.
Yes. Transit map? Somebody had talked to me the other day about a transit map for the city.
I think that's just a map of the fair.
Yeah, push it up there.
Higher.
Well, it's got to fold out one more time.
Oh, that's neat.
And it is a fair, that's pretty cool.
It's very similar to the colored map that's on the History Museum floor, simplified somewhat. Where was the battery part?
Covers coming. I don't know if there's anything.
There is, but
I don't know, I've got those other little guides. No. Oh, I don't know. But those ones are falling apart. Yeah.
And you can see what they did each day. For attended church at Sunday, August 28th, this person went to Westminster Presbyterian, and then I guess they went to Tower Grove Park.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Still.
All right, Philip Hirschbacher. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll hold this up first. I guess since we're horse trading, if anyone has any staff that they want to let me acquire, or if they know like where to point me in the nighttime with the shovel. So I can fix some stuff up.
That's what you'd have to do.
I would, I would really like to know exactly what it's made of. I let my chemistry friends with their mass spectrometry see what it's actually made of.
it doesn't find plaster very well though.
Yeah, I'm a new member, so I'm gonna see if I can get kicked out on my first night. Because this is not from 1904, and it's also not from St. Louis. It's from 148 West 36th Street. And it's from 1902, so it's a little bit older than that. I don't know if any of you are familiar. This is like probably old information for you, like 118 years old information. But is anyone familiar with like the controversy with the sculpture at the St. Louis World's Fair, like with Frederick Ruckstuhl and Carl Bitter? Is anyone familiar with that? Oh, this is like national news, and all the national newspapers, and maybe even international news. There's a huge controversy that Frederick Ruckstuhl was, oh man, I spent so many hours on Skinker at the Missouri Museum. Like they have all the paperwork for this, and you can read, they have articles from literally all over the US about that it was just national news. You think like the controversies now, like 2022 are crazy. Back then they're even worse. So Frederick Ruckstuhl was given the, the head of sculpture category. And then they thought that he was going to keep too much of the sculptures for himself. He was going to do too much of the sculpture groups on his own. And because of that, they were going to fire him. But in typical artist fashion, he's like, nope, I quit. So he quit beforehand. We actually do have a really nice bronze of his. It's over just north of Lindell. You have to kind of sneak into the gated community.
So this controversy was about the staff sculptures being.
No, it was about who was in charge. So, yeah, so Ruckstuhl's a famous, he had been in St. Louis, but then he had actually had a studio in Paris. So he was kind of all over the place. I have an article I can bring in another time about Ruckstuhl. But anyway, Carl Bitter got it. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. I only talk about my stupid thing I brought. This is an invitation. It says, this is the invitation because Mr. and Mrs. Charles Henry Niehaus will be at his shop next Wednesday evening, June 11th, from 8 to 11 p.m. So that's on this one paper, and then there's a drawing there. And then there's a drawing here of like a gargoyle or angel and demon, and it's signed Charles Niehaus, 1902. And then on the back, there's a little drawing of like eyes on the back, and then I don't know if I can read all of this, but it basically talks about a trip that he went to South Italy, went out to Pompeii yesterday, crammed with knowledge. It was terribly hot. It took nearly the whole day. Today, immigrants are coming aboard. Their outlines simply weary with heat as they struggle along with the heavy packs. Hope for a good time. So I'll let you look at this. Does anyone know who Charles Niehaus is?
He did one of the big sculptures, Destiny of Redman, maybe?
Charles Niehaus is most famous for the sculpture that we still have today, which is the Apotheosis of St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
He also did the Spirit of St. Louis. And there was also a controversy with Charles Niehaus because after the World's Fair, that was one of the pieces that was going to be a permanent piece. So they're going to bronze it. And he wanted, I can't remember the numbers on it, like $90,000 or something.
Yeah, it was
then.
ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Yeah, so even back then it was a ridiculous number. And newsflash, Charles, so this, it's hard to know if the controversy was, so Niehaus only did the scale model, which would have only been about 3 feet. And then Carl Bitter enlarged it in New Jersey. And there's photos of it, of the model and the enlarged sculpture in Carl Bitter's studio in New Jersey. But the model could have been in his studio at this time. So he did the Spirit of St. Louis, right? We've heard that with Lambert. So that was the pedestal. That was not recreated. Only the Apotheosis of St. Louis is in front of the St. Louis Art Museum now. They actually, so he bid on doing the bronze that we currently have. They actually went with someone else who could do it cheaper, but I think they paid him, I think if I'm remembering the numbers correct, like $3,000 or something, just for like the ability to use his model, even though he didn't sculpt the full size one, but just so he could use, like his permission to use his artwork, so. Yeah, it's not St. Louis, it's not 1904, but.
I think as long as he was noted as the original sculptor on the main statue, he said, that's fine, but I don't like it.
Yeah, so that's the follow-up to the bronze, is, yeah, he basically said that, you know, they kind of cut him out of the money, but they paid him some, so he could, I guess, go to the press or whatever. Yeah, it's really cool, like, look at it's like a little cherub on the back, there's like these really creepy eyes. No, on the, yeah, if you flip it over, like, there's the writing on the back side, there's just like two little tiny eyes.
We're down.
Yeah, it's cool, it's on the other paper. Yeah, like right there. Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
eyes and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can flip it over.
There's too much reflection.
Yeah, it's hard to see. You can kind of see, it looks kind of like a Picasso or something, it's like eyes and nose. They're like this big.
Where did you find that?
You know, the good magician never reveals this. Yeah, you know, I've just been, you know, I collect specifically, I collect prints. This is one of the things I collect with artwork. I also collect, you know, bronze medals or anything related to like the American sculptors of the late 19th and early 20th century.
I've read all about what you just talked about. And it doesn't take long when you read about it to get lost. As to what, who's doing what to who and all that. Because it's confusing, so. And I've read it 3 or 4 times. But like you described, with the arguments and, you know, and who wins and who loses and all that. It was deep back then for especially.
Yeah, and it's really inspiring, you know, with the World's Fair sculptors that, you know, it's about equal number of females as it was male sculptors that was doing artwork. Yeah. So it's like very revolutionary.
Do you have any solution or answer other than the standard? Well, as long as it was allegorical, Victorian sculptors could sculpt female nudes, but not a real person, because women had to be, you know, covered down to the wrists and down to the ankles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception. Yeah, so that's, and I think it's also a misconception to say it's Victorian, because most of the American sculptors were all trained in what's called faux art. So they were trained in the French Academy. And the first person was Richard Morris Hunt. There's a famous monument from him, like in Central Park. He's the one that did the main building in the Chicago World's Fair. So he basically brought, you know, French art. So most of the sculptors had trained in France. Augustus St. Gaudens had trained in France, and Daniel Chester French had trained in France. And they were the two that basically ended up doing the 2 sculptures in front of the St. Louis Art Museum. It was actually Augustus St. Gaudens had cancer. So the commission went to his brother, and then his brother died, and then his brother's wife is the one that finished it. So that's kind of interesting history too.
Were those art museum statues originally done as small maquettes, then enlarged to
Yeah, so
staff?
that's interesting.
And then later, and
Right.
Holly, you looked this up, I think one time, like in 07 or 09, the plaster statues of sculpture and painting.
Oh, the permanent ones weren't there till like 1950.
1915.
Yeah, it's about 10 years later approximately.
Okay.
And then also the Herman Akins McNeil is the relief sculptures that are above the door, which I think on the original, those were not there. And those were stone that were done later at the same time. There's the 3 reliefs, you know, which ones I'm talking about?
Oh, the 3 reliefs across the door, above the doors, yeah.
Right, so those were done, and he actually, Akins McNeil, he actually designed the American Quarter around that same time, around 1915. So he did those, yeah.
So were the 6 statues up on the, you know, just below the, is it the pediment?
Yeah, that was all there.
Were they
That was-
stone to begin with or staff to begin with?
I believe those were stone, but I don't know. I think there
Built in
is.
stone to begin with, like, it was never a staff.
Yeah, he's asking about the statues. He's asking about the statues. There's a window now, and some of the photos you can see, there's a Charles Gravely, who was a Philadelphia sculptor. And it's a girl kind of sitting in a pearl. I don't know if you've seen that, pictures of that. It's pretty famous. That there's a window there now, but it used to be a niche. where that particular piece at. But the St. Gaudens and the Daniel Chester French in front of the art museum, there's photos that they've changed. They actually changed, slightly different from the scale models. So the scale models were enlarged into plaster, and then they were turned into stone later, probably by the Piccirilli brothers.
But we're gonna keep in touch and, come see your place sometime and hear more from you.
And I'll time it, so I'll keep it under 3 months.
You guys get questions? Mine keep asking questions. It's good, but when the boss is asking the question, you go with it.
So if anyone wants to see this again, I don't really want to see it.
That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. I love this. Ron Snowden has a framed piece of artwork.
Just a couple more.
Yep.
So I always like brewery stuff and advertising and the World's Fair. If I get a brewery item at the World's Fair, I get really happy about that. So this one here I brought, and it is Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Wow.
And Pabst Blue Ribbon won 10 prizes, first prizes for this team of horses and wagon at our fair. And it's funny that this is really not a Pabst Blue Ribbon advertisement. It's from the Wilbur Food Company. And they had a tonic that they fed these horses, and that's why they're so healthy and good. So, let's see here.
You want to walk it up and down the aisle maybe real quick? so
Yeah, I
people
wanted
see
to
it,
read
Or
it.
do you have something else?
I wanted to read a letter that,
Okay, I'll walk it for you.
oh, okay, thanks.
So does that beat out the Clydesdales, Anheuser-Busch?
Yeah, the Clydesdales didn't come out till 1933.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, Anheuser-Busch. So this is to the Wilbur Stock Food Company. It says, gentlemen, our 6-horse teams of Percherons awarded first prize at World's Fair St. Louis and at International Horse Show Chicago were fed on Wilbur's Stock Tonic during the entire season. This team was awarded the blue ribbon in every contest, and we attribute their perfect health, strength, and condition to Wilbur's Stock Tonic. Yours very truly, Pabst Brewing Company, James G. Boyd, Superintendent of Stables. So, they really like the tonic. So you find those, but on eBay, but they really are trashed. And the fact that this person took the time to have it framed really makes a difference on keeping stuff for a long time. If you want it, you gotta frame it. That's what I always say.
Frame everything.
Frame it all. Right, Jerry?
Jerry's commercial.
And Jerry can frame it for you.
Yeah, Jerry's willing to help you with that.
That's the end
Just
of
make
it.
sure you.
Thank you very much. Your turn. For the mystery presentation.
Mine, I don't really know a lot about, so maybe someone here does. Actually, a friend of mine, this belonged to his aunt. So he was going through some of her things, and he sent a picture of it to me because it says it. On the back, it does say St. Louis World's Fair, 1904 on the one edge. There's a picture of the Louisiana Purchase Monument, and that's what it says on the bottom. It's kind of hard to see there.
It's a pedometer.
Well, okay. Oh, thanks. Well, that was one of them that we thought, maybe a counter, maybe a pedometer. Well, first I thought, oh, it's a pocket watch. No, I looked at it, I'm like, wait, it only goes up to 10. So, yeah, we were wondering if it was some type of counter, though I thought it doesn't have any clicker on or anything. So, and then I thought pedometer, that's what I even put on there. I thought maybe that. And then on the front, it says, I'm from Missouri, show me, look at the old. And so, you know, he was trying to figure, he was asking me, do you know what it is? I had sent Mike some pictures of it. I don't know if he ever took it to the guy that owns Mad Hatter down in St. Charles. That guy has a lot of stuff in his shop and that. And so I go, you know, keep a hold of it. I go, it might be worth some money. And then at Christmas time, we're exchanging gifts and that. And lo and behold, I open this and he's like, I want with him and his wife. I've known his wife for almost my whole life. And then he goes, we want you to have it. And so I'm like, I was all in tears. I'm like, are you sure? He was like, it doesn't mean this way. He goes, we know that you and your mom are involved in that. He goes, it would mean a lot more to you. We wanted to go to someone that, you know, would mean a lot to. So that's what I thought was really neat. So yeah, that's what we thought it was. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it, Mike. That was our show.
Doug, that was a great job. I want to thank you for putting up with all of this that went no more than 2.5 minutes. Some really neat, unusual, different stuff, and we'll have 15 minutes at least. And I'll wait for them to kind of chase us out before we have to leave. So feel free to wander the tables, you know, take a look at some of the stuff, ask questions of people that exhibited. Jen is looking at Doug to make sure she gets the list of.
Already
people.
did.
Already did. Okay, so to wrap up, quick update about several upcoming society meetings and events. It's a busy month for the society over the next 6 weeks or so. You've heard about the FARE on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, September 2, 3, and 4. And Doug is working up a schedule. I think he's got everything pretty much covered. But it's really good if you have 1 or 2 extra people, because then you can wander around and look at stuff.
Anybody that wants to just come to the FARE and meet with us in Forest Park, you can come anytime you want. It'll be wonderful.
There's a car show. There'll be music on stage and other things going on, arts and crafts tents and stuff that are.
Healing arts, kids world.
Yeah.
All sorts of performing arts off to one side and music over here. And there's if you like to roller skate or bring your skateboard, there's going to be a skating area in the center of the park. It's a very interesting fair. You need to come just to see all the people.
And it's interesting to watch, even if you can't do it, to watch. Saturday, September 10th at 1:30. We've scheduled a visit to the Ulysses S. Grant National Historical Site, which is right across the street from Grant's Farm on Grant Road, just off of Gravois. That presentation will not be Zoomed or recorded because we're going to get a presentation about President Grant, and he's going to focus on hardscrabble, which was the log cabin that Grant built. We'll get a tour of Whitehaven, which was Grant's wife's parents' home, and then see the museum devoted to President Grant. And I bet you'll even find some World's Fair memorabilia in that museum.
And what date was that?
Saturday, September 10th. Most of this, I think, is in the bulletin that everyone will hopefully be getting. On Sunday, September 25th, the society will set up an outreach tent at Art in the Park in Francis Park in St. Louis Hills. This one-day event features many bands, many food vendors, and 80 artist booths. And you'll have a chance to shop, eat, enjoy music, and see the statue of David R. Francis. How many people have seen the statue of David Francis? How many people have never seen it? A chance for you to come. I'll be coordinating our support. We'll have one tent with hopefully about 3 people manning it most of the day. It's a one-day event, so it's not taking 3 or 4 days or whatever. And also, I want to thank a certain anonymous person, but I'll mention her name in a minute because I will get her back. for making a generous donation to the society in her parents' name to allow us to place an advertisement for the World's Fair Society in the Art in the Park event booklet, and also put the World's Fair Society logo on the back of the event T-shirts for Run for the Hills, which is on Saturday, September 17th. Run for the Hills is one of these multi-location runs where runners go around different age groups. It's a one-day thing. The Ride for the Hills is the Gateway Cup, where they go down to Benton Park and go to different places and stuff.
Hills is just in St. Louis.
Yes, okay, got it. So thank you very much, Nan, for your generous donation in your parents' name. We really appreciate it. On Tuesday, September 27th at 11 a.m., the postponed screening of Alex Matheson's video about the World's Fair will be shown. You'll recall that it was canceled in late July after our record-setting rain the night before, where I dare say almost everybody got at least 6 inches, if not 8 or 10 inches, depending on where you lived. But they canceled it that morning, and it's been rescheduled for Tuesday, September 27th. How many people have never seen that video? You ought to come. You ought to come. I already mentioned it's a good chance to go to the History
Attention
Museum.
library patrons, it is now 8:45. The library will close in 15 minutes. Please let us know if we can help you find the information or materials you need.
Almost done. On Tuesday, October 11th at 7 p.m. at Aberdeen Heights, our meeting will be St. Louis Ragtime Capital, a presentation by the Ragged Blade Band featuring Cherry and Jerry. They're going to present a half-talk, half-music presentation about the history of ragtime music. Okay, is there anything I've overlooked or haven't mentioned of upcoming meetings, et cetera? I'm still trying to determine a location for our banquet. Prices have gone up quite a bit, and I don't want to have to raise the price too much for us to have our annual banquet, which will hopefully be the Saturday after December 1st. One final reminder, the flyers that I talked about earlier are now on the table and back. One is about the tour in Forest Park given by 2 of our members, Charles Taylor and Doug Schneider, and the other is about the postcard show over in Collinsville with instructions on how to get there, the hours and stuff like that. So feel free to take one of these and just look at it or share it or whatever.
I have something, speaking of the flood, it makes you kind of
Oh.
found.
Maybe is this something for everybody that they need to see?
Yeah,
Or-
I mean, in a sense, but I'm gonna give it to the
Because we're
society.
getting short on time, we've got to be out
Okay,
of
go
here.
ahead. This is from when we honored the 4 o'clock with the. No, I got it. Larry and I. Larry. Okay, oh, yeah. This is the day
Yeah, please do. I just sent a note saying thanks for coming.
that